They don't need to destroy you. They just need to make you feel something: anger, shame, guilt, one emotional misstep, and you hand them the keys to your mind. Machiavelli understood long ago: the person who controls your emotions controls your fate. Your enemies won't always attack with force. They'll attack with feeling. They'll manipulate your loyalty, your fear, your hope, and the moment you react, you lose. But what if you didn't? What if their insults hit a wall? What if their praise meant nothing? What if your silence scared them more than your rage ever could? To be emotionally dangerous is to be unreadable, not heartless, but precise, not numb, but immune. This video isn't about feeling less, it's about controlling what others will never see. Because once you master your emotions, you become the one they fear. There is a lie that's been sold to you since birth: that to feel deeply is to live fully, that to care is to be virtuous, that emotional sensitivity is some kind of moral achievement. But Machiavelli would ask you, who benefits from your sensitivity? Not you. The more you feel, the more others manipulate. The more you care, the more others consume. And the more you react, the more others control. Becoming emotionally dangerous. Power begins when emotion ends. But here's the part the weak never understand. You don't need to be dead inside to become emotionally dangerous. You don't need to erase your humanity, only your reactions. This isn't about becoming hollow. It's about becoming selective. You still feel, you still think, but you never show your hand. You don't hand out your feelings like a free sample. You reserve them, you weaponize them, and you use them strategically when they serve you. The shift begins when you stop needing to be understood. You no longer require validation, pity, or connection. You don't live to explain yourself. You live to execute your vision. Because here's the truth. Machiavelli whispered between the lines of The Prince: "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." And make no mistake, emotions make you lovable. But fear, that comes from control. And control comes from emotional mastery. So how do you become cold without becoming empty? You start by reprogramming how you see emotion itself. Most people use emotion as a guide. They act when they're angry, speak when they're hurt, run when they're scared. But this is primitive, animalistic, reactive. You're not here to live like prey. You're here to become the predator, calculated, calm, composed. The emotionally dangerous man watches his reactions, like a general watches a battlefield. He doesn't flinch at betrayal. He doesn't blink at threats. He doesn't speak when silence creates more fear. This man doesn't rage. He waits. He doesn't beg. He disappears. He doesn't explode. He recalibrates because he understands something most men don't. Your calm is a weapon. Your stillness is a warning. And your indifference is power. But to get there, you must kill your dependence on emotional validation. Stop seeking applause. Stop chasing understanding. Stop explaining your pain to people who weaponize it behind your back. You don't owe the world your heart. You owe yourself your freedom. The shift happens when you begin to guard your emotional energy like treasure. You don't react to every insult. You don't explain every decision. You don't justify your ambition to people who never built anything. And most importantly, you detach, not because you don't care, but because caring too much makes you predictable. And predictable men are replaceable. This is the art Machiavelli practiced in the shadows: to wear masks, not to lie, but to protect, to remain unreadable, not to deceive, but to dominate. This shift from emotional chaos to controlled detachment is your evolution. The moment you stop allowing feelings to dictate your movements, you start moving others without them ever touching you. This is the power of the cold, not cruel but invulnerable, not heartless but unreachable. You are no longer a man who gets moved. You are the man who moves others. And once you cross that threshold, you don't just become emotionally dangerous, you become emotionally untouchable. Look around you. Power is no longer taken by brute force. It's taken through emotion, through manipulation, guilt, shame, and distraction. You're not being conquered with swords. You're being conquered with words. They don't need to break your body. They just need to provoke your feelings, and you'll destroy yourself from the inside. Every time you react emotionally, you give them something to work with. A sigh of frustration, a tear of disappointment, a flare of rage. These moments might feel justified to you, but to someone watching closely, they are blueprints, maps of your psychological weaknesses. They now know what bothers you. They know how to destabilize you, and worse, how to control you. Emotions are not private. They're public signals, and in the game of power, the one who broadcasts their emotions is the one who bleeds first. This is where most people fail. They believe being emotional means being real. They believe opening up makes them brave. But Machiavelli would laugh at that foolishness. He knew better. He wrote for men who wanted to rule, not for men who wanted to be liked. He understood that power is cold. Power is silent. Power feels nothing unless it must. You think you're being honest when you cry. But what you're really doing is exposing a wound in front of people who would love to push deeper. You think you're strong for yelling back, but you've already been baited, and they're smiling while you explode. This is how kings fall, how empires rot, how strong men become pawns, through emotion, not through failure, but through their inability to detach. And the tragedy is most people are proud of their emotional reactions. They say, "At least I'm being authentic." Authentic. No, you're being predictable. You're being readable. You're being weak. In a world that watches everything, emotional transparency is suicide. Let's be very clear. If your enemies can make you angry, they can make you act without thinking. If your friends can guilt you, they can make you compromise your principles. If your memories control you, the past will own your future. And if your heart is always open, someone will come along and crush it for sport. The enemy doesn't want to kill your body. They want to control your decisions, and they do that by triggering your emotions. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how good your intentions are. If you can't control your emotional output, you will never be powerful. Because in the game of power, emotions are currency, and you're leaking yours for free. Let that sink in. Every outburst is a donation to your enemy's strategy. This is the hidden war no one talks about. Not a war of bullets and blades, but a war of reactions. And the truth is this: you're not losing because you're not capable. You're losing because you're emotionally exposed. You think they don't see your insecurities? They do. You think they don't know you crave approval? They smell it, and they use it against you until you feel trapped, drained, confused. Not because the world is cruel, but because you never learned how to armor your emotions. And that right there is the problem. Emotional control is not a gift, it's a skill. And like any weapon, it must be sharpened, tested, and mastered in silence. Machiavelli didn't rely on luck, fate, or virtue. He relied on preparation. He believed that a wise man does at once what a fool does finally. So if you want to become emotionally dangerous, you must train for it ruthlessly, not by suppressing your emotions, but by dissecting them, rewiring them, and weaponizing your response. Here's how the process begins. Step 1. Pause before you react. This is the first sign of power. Stillness. When something provokes you, pause. Not for a minute, not for peace, but to observe. Let your silence make them uncomfortable while they wait for your reaction. Study theirs. The longer you wait, the more power shifts in your direction. And most of the time, that pause will reveal the truth. You'll see their intention, their insecurity, their weakness. They wanted control. You gave them silence, and now they're exposed. Replace emotion with strategy. Step 2. Replace emotion with strategy. The average man reacts with feelings. The powerful man responds with tactics. Instead of asking, "How do I feel about this?" ask, "What gives me the most control here?" Detach from your ego. Detach from your pride. Detach even from your need to be right. Right means nothing if you lose the game. You want the advantage, not the emotional release. Revenge isn't slamming the door. It's walking away while they self-destruct. You don't need to get even. You need to rise above so far that they become irrelevant. Step 3. Train your triggers. You must know your weaknesses before the world does. What gets under your skin? Is it disrespect? Rejection? Being ignored? Good. Now make it your training ground. Put yourself in situations where that exact trigger appears again and again, not to suffer, but to dominate the feeling it brings. Let them insult you and stay calm. Let them lie and stay composed. Let them underestimate you and stay silent. Each time you refuse to react, the trigger dies a little, and soon you'll find nothing moves you unless you choose it. That is true power. Step 4. Control your facial expressions. The face is the battlefield. Machiavelli understood. Men watch for weakness in the eyes before they make their move. Your face must become unreadable. No twitch, no drop in posture, no change in gaze. Train yourself in the mirror. Say less than necessary. Practice stillness. Practice neutrality. Smile only when it benefits you. Frown only when it sends a message. Every look is calculated, and when they try to provoke you, give them nothing but a calm surgical stare. Let their confusion grow. Let their power fade. Step 5. Say less than necessary. Words are currency, and most people spend theirs like beggars. You want power? Then speak with precision. Let silence fill the gaps between your sentences. The emotionally weak explain everything. They rant. They justify. They confess. You speak only to command, correct or confuse. Let your stillness speak louder than their noise. Let your unpredictability breed fear, because when they don't know what you're thinking, they'll assume the worst, and that assumption is your shield. These 5 methods: pause, reframe, train, harden your face, and speak less, are not tricks. They are disciplines, and the more you practice them, the more emotionally invincible you become, not by running from pain, but by learning to process it privately and convert it into strength. This is what Machiavelli would call the inner fortress, an invisible layer of armor around your soul. Most people defend castles. You build walls within your mind, walls no one can breach, not even with love, hate, or betrayal. And that is the method, not for surviving, but for dominating. When you finally gain control over your emotions, your entire life begins to shift. People respond to you differently. Conversations become shorter. Silence becomes your strongest language. You no longer need to prove anything. Your calm presence says it all. The shift. Most people walk through the world being completely reactive. Their faces show every irritation. Their words are rushed, and their emotions are easy to read. They think they're being honest or expressive, but really, they're giving away power. When you stop doing that, when you become emotionally disciplined, you become something people don't know how to handle. You'll notice people hesitate before they speak to you. They'll test you once, maybe twice, but then they'll stop. They realize quickly that their tricks don't work on you. You don't get flustered, you don't chase, and you don't beg. You stay still. And that stillness makes you dangerous, because they can't read you, and they don't know what you'll do next. This emotional control gives you quiet power. You don't have to argue or raise your voice. You don't have to explain yourself. People start taking you seriously, not because you demand it, but because your behavior forces it. The less you show, the more people start to fear what you might be thinking. That fear, that uncertainty, becomes a kind of control. You also stop relying on people emotionally. You're no longer attached to their approval, their praise, or their attention. You become more self-contained, more difficult to reach. People realize they can't influence you with guilt or compliments. You don't get swayed easily, and that makes you immune to most of the emotional traps others fall into. Your identity. Over time, your emotional discipline becomes your identity. Others begin to look at you as the one who doesn't get rattled. They adjust their tone around you. They think twice before crossing a line. You don't have to say much because your silence already carries weight. People who once underestimated you now become cautious. They realize you're not the kind of person they can manipulate or play games with. This is the transformation. You don't just gain respect, you gain presence, and presence is more powerful than noise. You become the person others measure themselves against, not because you tried to be intimidating, but because you remove the one thing that makes most people weak: uncontrolled emotion. That's what it means to become emotionally dangerous. You don't attack. You don't explain. You don't beg. You simply stop being available to the games. And in doing so, you rise above all of them. Emotional power is not something you achieve once and forget. It's not a trophy you place on a shelf. It's not a phase you go through. It's a discipline, one that requires daily awareness, daily restraint, and daily control. You don't become emotionally dangerous by accident. You become it through repetition, through decision, and through refusal. Maintaining emotional power. Refusal to react, refusal to explain, and refusal to hand over control to anyone. Most people lose their emotional edge because they relax. They think they've outgrown their triggers. They let people in too quickly. They start trusting without filters. And just like that, they go soft, not physically, but emotionally. They react to disrespect. They explain when questioned. They let anger or sadness leak through their voice, and the power they once held quietly slips away. To maintain emotional power, you must remain in control of the most dangerous weapon you carry: your response. Your mind will get tested. Your patience will be challenged. Your values will be pushed. People will insult you just to see if you flinch. They'll lie to you to see if you beg for the truth. They'll ignore you to see if you break your silence. And every time you respond like the average man, you give them what they want: certainty, leverage, power. But when you respond with nothing, you take it all back. This discipline starts in the mind. You must learn to observe your emotions like a strategist studies an enemy. When something angers you, don't react. Analyze it. When someone disrespects you, don't defend yourself. Remember it. When you feel sadness, loneliness, or confusion, don't drown in it. Step back. Look at it. Use it. Because your feelings are real, but they don't all deserve your action. Most of them are just noise designed to throw you off balance. The strong man lets them pass like weather. He remains the same in sunshine and storm. Detachment. Another key to maintaining emotional power is detachment. That doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop attaching your peace to things you can't control. You stop expecting people to be loyal, honest, or kind. You stop assuming you'll be understood. Instead, you prepare. You expect betrayal. You anticipate disrespect. You understand that in a ruthless world, people do what benefits them, not you. And when you accept that, you stop being surprised. You stop being shaken. You also build internal distance. You keep your thoughts close, your feelings closer, and your reactions sealed behind a wall. You don't owe the world an explanation. You don't need to defend your silence. You don't need to argue with people who aren't on your level. You speak when it benefits you. You act when it brings results. The rest, you let it pass. The emotionally dangerous man lives like a shadow, present but untouchable. He doesn't react to every insult. He doesn't chase after attention. He doesn't need to be liked. His value comes from what he withholds. His power comes from what he does not show. And that mystery, that emotional silence, commands more respect than 1,000 speeches. You also must protect your environment. Don't surround yourself with people who feed chaos. Don't spend time explaining yourself to those who enjoy confusion. Choose silence over small talk. Choose solitude over fake support. Because the world is full of people who pretend to care just to gather information. You don't need them. You need peace, and peace comes from control over your emotions, your surroundings, and your time. Maintaining emotional power. Maintaining emotional power means keeping your sword sharp even when no one is attacking. You stay disciplined in calm seasons, so you're lethal when storms return. You train your face to stay still, your voice to stay even, and your mind to stay focused. You don't rehearse anger, you rehearse restraint. That's where power lives. Not in shouting, but in silence. In the end, emotional strength becomes your greatest asset, not your money, not your words, not your physical strength, but your ability to remain unmoved when the world tries to provoke you. That is power. That is control. That is fearlessness. And that is how you stay dangerous, quietly, consistently, forever. If this message woke something up inside you, if you felt your mindset shift even slightly, then like this video. And if you want more ruthless clarity on power, control, and strategy, subscribe to the channel. This is not motivation. This is preparation. Stay sharp, stay cold, stay in control, and never let them see you bleed.